the Colosseum standing as a timeless reminder of empire, Renaissance palaces glowing with artistry, and bustling modern piazzas alive with the rhythm of daily life. These images of cultural wealth and historical power slowly fade into stark contrast charts, showing Italy's debt climbing to staggering levels. Small businesses shuddered under financial strain, and crowds of citizens protesting austerity measures in the streets. The narration cuts in with solemn weight. Italy, the land of empires and art, now carries one of the heaviest debt burdens in the world. How did a nation of such wealth and culture become trapped in a cycle of borrowing and crisis? The words echo as the visuals juxtapose past glory with present fragility, drawing viewers into a story that spans centuries. The camera lingers on the human toll shopkeepers struggling to keep doors open, families burdened by rising taxes, and young graduates facing unemployment despite their education. The hook intensifies, framing Italy's debt not as a mere statistic, but as a defining challenge that threatens its stability and future. The central question emerges with urgency. Was this crisis born from the weight of history, the choices of politics, or deeper structural flaws that hollowed out the nation's economy? The opening leaves viewers gripped, compelled to uncover how a country celebrated for its culture and resilience could become one of the most indebted nations in the world, and what lessons its struggle holds for the global economy. Italy's economic journey after World War II is one of remarkable recovery and eventual entanglement in debt, a story that begins with devastation and quickly transforms into what historians call the Italian economic miracle. In the 1950s and 1960s, rapid industrialization, fueled by strong exports, foreign investment, and a hardworking population, lifted the nation from ruins into prosperity. Cities like Milan and Turin became hubs of manufacturing and innovation, while living standards rose dramatically, giving Italians a sense of renewed pride and stability. As Italy integrated into the European Union decades later, it seemed poised to secure its place among the world's strongest economies, benefiting from shared markets and the adoption of the euro. Yet beneath this success, structural weaknesses were already taking root: regional inequality between the wealthy north and struggling south, a reliance on government borrowing to fund expansive welfare, and pensions, and political instability that often prioritized short-term gains over long-term sustainability. What appeared to be a thriving economy carried within it the seeds of vulnerability. This video will trace Italy's journey from post-war prosperity to debt dependency, uncovering the political choices, structural flaws, and global pressures that shaped its fate. It will explore not only the numbers, but also the human stories, families who enjoyed the fruits of the boom years, only to later face austerity, unemployment, and uncertainty. The tone is urgent and dramatic, but balanced, weaving together hard economic data with lived experiences to show that Italy's debt crisis is not just about figures on a chart, but about resilience, survival, and the lessons it offers to the world about the fragility of prosperity when governance falters and reform is delayed. Italy's financial journey unfolds in three distinct acts, beginning with the post-war boom that became known as the economic miracle. In the 1950s and 1960s, rapid industrialization transformed the nation, with factories in the north producing cars, machinery, and textiles that fueled exports and lifted living standards. Families in Milan and Turin enjoyed prosperity, new homes, and consumer goods that symbolized modern life, while the government expanded welfare programs, pensions, and subsidies to support a growing middle class. Yet beneath this success lay hidden weaknesses: stark regional inequality between the industrial north and the agrarian south, reliance on government borrowing to sustain spending, and weak tax collection that left public finances vulnerable. The prosperity of the north contrasted sharply with southern communities, struggling with unemployment and migration, foreshadowing the imbalances that would later weigh heavily on the nation. By the 1970s and 1980s, Italy entered the second act, the debt spiral. Oil shocks and inflation battered the economy, while political instability led to short-term fixes that relied on borrowing. Public debt mounted rapidly, and by the 1990s, Italy's debt-to-GDP ratio had exceeded 100%, one of the highest in Europe. The country's entry into the Eurozone promised stability, but structural weaknesses remained unresolved, leaving Italy exposed when global crises struck. The 2008 financial crash and the subsequent Eurozone debt crisis revealed the fragility of its economy as banks faltered, businesses closed, and youth unemployment soared above 40% in some regions. Families faced austerity measures, wages stagnated, and protests filled the streets of Rome and Milan. echoing the frustration of citizens locked in a cycle of sacrifice without relief. The third act focuses on Italy's struggle for stability and the global implications of its debt burden. EU-imposed reforms demanded spending cuts, tax hikes, and austerity measures that deepened public resentment, while debt levels remained stubbornly high, hovering around 140% of GDP. Italy's persistent debt became a source of anxiety for the Eurozone, raising fears of contagion that could destabilize the entire European project. Yet amid the turmoil, resilience emerged. Entrepreneurs and innovators sought to rebuild, communities adapted, and Italy continued to survive despite slow growth, political fragmentation, and deep distrust in institutions. The emotional beat of this chapter is captured in the contrast between protesters demanding change and innovators striving to carve out a future, symbolizing both the scars of crisis and the enduring spirit of renewal. Italy's main body story is not just about numbers, it is about cycles of boom and bust, the human toll of austerity, and the global lessons of how unchecked borrowing and structural neglect can trap even advanced economies in a cycle of debt and struggle. Italy's debt story is more than numbers, it is a tale of choices, resilience, and warning, a narrative that stretches from the grandeur of empire to the struggles of modern democracy. For decades, borrowing became the easy answer to political short-termism, a way to appease voters and patch over structural weaknesses without confronting the deeper reforms the nation desperately needed. Yet debt is unforgiving, and Italy's reliance on it has left scars that are visible not only in its economy, but in the daily lives of its people. The final image lingers, Rome's timeless ruins and Renaissance art, reminders of a nation that once shaped the world, fading into scenes of modern protests, shuttered businesses, and communities striving to rebuild. It is a juxtaposition of decline and resilience, showing that while debt has weighed heavily on Italy, the spirit of its people endures. The universal lesson is clear: over-reliance on borrowing, neglect of structural reform, and the lure of short-term fixes can destabilize even advanced economies, threatening prosperity for generations. As the video closes, viewers are invited to reflect on how debt shapes nations, how history repeats itself when vigilance is lost, and how reform and accountability are essential to protect prosperity. Italy's journey is not just about crisis, it is about endurance, adaptation, and the reminder that resilience can emerge even in the shadow of decline, offering lessons that resonate far beyond its borders.